Johnny sat in a semi-comfortable chair and stared at the hairline crack in the ceiling. From time to time he would flip through one of the magazines that were laying on the table in front of him. But since gardening, fashion, and current events weren't his forte, he'd inevitably go back to staring at the crack in the ceiling. Johnny couldn't remember entering the waiting room, what it was he was waiting for, or even who he was seeing. But he couldn't think of anything else to do, so he just continued sitting. He laughed to himself at the strangeness of it all. A few of the other people in the waiting room gave him a weird look, then went on ignoring him. As the hours passed, Johnny became impatient. A man can only stare at the ceiling and ignore other people for so long before completely flipping out. Johnny was darn close to his limit. So he stood up on his chair, took out his lighter, and flicked it under the sprinklers. Suddenly it was raining indoors. Johnny laughed and laughed, half expecting some macho security guard to come in, say, "Excuse me, sir," and escort him out. But when Johnny paused, he noticed that nobody was all that concerned or even that bothered by the change in barometric pressure. The other people waiting simply brought out their umbrellas. Defeated, Johnny sat down in a soggy seat, wishing for a Valium, a beer, or even a hammer to the head to end the monotony. But nothing happened. "You all suck," Johnny announced to them all. None of them cared much for his opinion. "Yelling won't help you," a voice said to Johnny. He turned around to see a vibrant young woman, a new face in the room. "We're all just waiting for our time," she told Johnny, "just like you." "Just like me," Johnny said. "But I don't even know why I'm here." She gave him one of those glances that drive men crazy. One of those glances that mean one thing but men interpret to mean another. What she was saying was, "That's nice, but leave me alone." What Johnny thought she was saying was, "Sit closer and tell me a story." So that's what he did. He told her about the summer he lived as a bum in San Francisco, met a girl, and fell in love. It had been a beautiful spring, and for the first time in his life he was happy and things were actually going his way. One night the couple went for a long walk on the beach, staring at the water splashing in the surf, and she disappeared and left them there. He looked and looked, but she was nowhere to be found, and nobody even asked about her, as if she had never even existed at all. Johnny looked over to see the sad face of the girl in the waiting room. She moved to comfort Johnny. Johnny just laughed, telling her it wasn't really all that big of a deal. She frowned and asked if he was sad. He laughed again and told her he wasn't, that he had always dreamed of sitting in the waiting room for the rest of eternity. She frowned again, and then her name was called and she left. Johnny went back ogling the crack in the ceiling. Hours slid by, slow as molasses, and one by one the people in the waiting room were called and new people took their place, none of them interesting. Pretty soon even those people were called and more non-interesting people took their places. Johnny continued waiting. He got the feeling he might never be called. He looked at the magazines, he looked at the ceiling, anything to get his mind off the girl from San Francisco. But of course that was all he could think about. Eventually even he had to admit that to himself, and out of his desperation he approached the receptionist. "Do you happen to know what happened to that girl from San Francisco?" Johnny asked. "I don't know her name, so I know it might be a long shot, especially considering you probably don't even know who I'm talking about. I just want to know if she's okay." He was surprised the receptionist didn't regard him as batshit insane. The receptionist looked down and in a library-quiet voice told him that the girl from San Francisco was killed that night. They were walking on the beach. And the fact that she was dead had stuck in Johnny's head. Johnny looked back up at the receptionist. "I never forgave myself for that," he told her. "I wish I could let her know how sorry I was. How sorry that I could never find her." The receptionist smiled. "You can let her know, Johnny. She's in the back. She's waiting for you." Johnny didn't know what to say. He finally began to realize this wasn't an ordinary waiting room. "I'm dead," he said to himself. "I'm dead, aren't I?" But before he could answer that question, a voice called his name, and Johnny walked right on through. He would never have to see that hairline crack in the ceiling again.